Have you ever woken up to the smell of fresh spray paint, destroying your dead uncle's prized boat while you slept inside it? What if the vandal was the same smiling HOA president preaching about community values and aesthetic harmony? And what if the paperwork that could crush her entire empire had been sitting in your basement the whole time? Let me pull you into how this nightmare unfolded at Silverpine Lake Estates, high in the Colorado Rockies, where the postcard-perfect views hid a dictatorship run by clipboards and spite. My name is Logan Whitaker, 49, retired Navy logistics guy who'd spent 2 decades keeping ships supplied across the Pacific. After my divorce left me in a shoebox apartment watching my teenage daughter scroll away our weekends, Uncle Harlan passed at 87 and left me his lakeside cabin. The man had built the place himself in the 1970s. Thick log walls, stone fireplace, hand-carved dock that laughed at mountain blizzards. Silverpine Lake sparkled like liquid sapphire between pine-covered peaks, 250 acres of water so clear you could watch trout dart 30 feet down. The cabin was paid off, debt-free heaven after years of rent traps. The community looked like paradise on paper. 52 luxury homes hugging the shoreline, manicured lawns, boats that cost more than most mortgages. The Silverpine Estates HOA collected $425 monthly for maintaining standards, whatever corporate speak meant. Then I met the queen of that little kingdom, Penelope Hargrove, 57, ex-HR hatchet woman turned lifetime HOA president. She ruled from a glass and steel monstrosity across the cove, her white Range Rover gleaming like a throne on wheels. Penelope, dressed in pressed khakis and pearl earrings, carried violation notices like loaded guns, and had run off 3 families in 18 months with her community improvement campaigns. Neighbors whispered she measured grass blades with a laser level and timed dog walks with a stopwatch. Week 2, 7 a.m. I'm sipping coffee on the dock watching sunrise gild the peaks when her heels click across the planks like a countdown. Her perfume hits first, floral chemical warfare against fresh pine. "Mister," she says, clipboard raised like a courtroom exhibit, "your vessel is creating unsightly ripples that disturb our peaceful aesthetic." I glance at Uncle Harlan's 1982 Sea Ray, meticulously maintained, honest age showing beside the neighbor's floating yachts. "Ma'am, it's registered, insured, and I use it for family fishing. Perfectly legal." Her smile could freeze the lake. "We'll see about that, won't we?" What followed was psychological warfare wrapped in pastel stationery. Day 9. Certified violation notice. Day 14. Lawyer letter citing community standards. Day 19. Anonymous county complaint claiming I ran an unlicensed commercial vessel. Absurd for weekend cruises with my daughter. Day 24. A petition signed by 14 neighbors claiming my diesel shattered their serenity harder than their leaf blowers. According to these folks, my gentle engine was louder than a chainsaw opera at dawn. The mountain mist rose off the water like ghostly fingers, and I started wondering how Uncle Harlan had survived decades of this quiet hell. Then they made it personal. To the hiss of an aerosol can still echoing. Neon orange letters 8 inches tall screamed boat trash, down 40 feet of spotless white fiberglass, paint dripping like blood on a wedding dress. The can lay at my feet, my fingers like guilty fingerprints. A violation notice duct taped to the windshield demanded removal within 72 hours or $500 daily fines. Penelope's signature sat at the bottom in perfect cursive. "Whoever did it wanted me to smell the fumes, see my inheritance ruined in real time." The boat had survived 30 Colorado winters unscratched. Now it looked like a floating billboard of shame visible from every house on the lake. I didn't rage. Years of Navy logistics taught me, treat it like hostile territory and gather intel. First stop, county courthouse basement that smelled of old paper and crushed dreams. 6 hours flipping through HOA covenants, standard suburban control nonsense about grass height tyranny, and approved paint colors. But Section 11 caught my eye. Original owners retain grandfathered riparian rights. Old paperwork, the kind bureaucrats overlook. Back home I installed 4 weatherproof night vision cameras around the dock, footage streaming to cloud storage Penelope couldn't touch. Deputy Ramirez, a battle-hardened local, took the vandalism report seriously. "Son, we've had 4 HOA complaints this quarter. These clipboard dictators are getting bold. My certified demand letter went out next. $4, $200 for repairs, cease harassment, written apology. Delivered by hand so Princess Penelope couldn't claim ignorance. Her response was pure theater. Meeting with the subtlety of a fire alarm. Agenda. Addressing problem resident and protective measures. Translation. Destroy the new guy before he fights back. Penelope's masterstroke arrived in the mail. A proposed covenant amendment banning watercraft over 25 feet or older than 10 years. If passed, my boat became contraband overnight. She launched flyers claiming my diesel was murdering fish families and turning the lake into an environmental disaster. 3 grown adults with cameras camped around the shore like paparazzi waiting for me to commit the crime of driving at granny speed. The comedy hit when they snapped photos of my evening cruise, wake barely rippling the water. I laughed bitterly inside, laughing while seething, watching these suburban warriors document my excessive ripples. Neighbors started whispering during mailbox runs. Retired teacher Carla whispered. She bankrupted the Millers over tomato plants. Said they violated aesthetic standards. 15 grand in fines. Vietnam vet Mike shared his tale. 2 grand fine for the wrong shade of green on his mailbox. She brought a color wheel to prove it. The pattern crystallized. Eliminated anyone threatening her pastel paradise. Weaponizing bylaws until victims fled or broke. She was a serial neighborhood killer in pearls. But unlike her past prey, I had patience and training. Morning coffee on the dock became strategy sessions. Pine scent mixing with diesel while I mapped the battlefield. She thought she'd hooked easy prey. She had no idea she'd snagged a predator. That predator mode kicked in after the second sabotage. I returned from town groceries to find my boat drifting 50 yards offshore, hull gouged against rocks, dock lines sliced clean. Security footage captured a dark figure at 2 a.m. Then the giveaway. Penelope's white Range Rover idling at the edge like a smoking gun. The woman was too arrogant to delegate dirty work. My dock became Fort Knox, motion lights bright enough to land planes, redundant cloud backups, marine locks. Colorado's one-party consent laws turned my phone into a legal weapon. Every conversation, notice, and glare got recorded in courtroom quality. A Zoom with maritime attorney Rachel Torres made my tactical brain sing. Navigational servitude and riparian rights could override HOA busybody nonsense. Meanwhile, basement archaeology unearthed gold. Yellowed 1919 deed from my great-grandfather who dammed the creek to create Silver Pine Lake. Grantor retained perpetual water rights and lakebed ownership. The 1987 developers who built the estates never bought those rights, they just assumed. For 37 years the HOA collected millions in lake maintenance fees on land they didn't own. Every dock, every swim platform, even Penelope's lakeside meditation gazebo, where she plotted vendettas, technically trespassing on my property. Penelope escalated like a cornered dictator. She proposed a $6,000 emergency assessment to fund her legal war, painted my boat as worse than the Exxon Valdez. Her brother-in-law's kayak buddy wrote a scientific report on napkin math claiming my 25-footer generated more damage than 35-foot speedboats. Facebook propaganda exploded. Save Our Lake posts with my boat photoshopped into an oil rig. Discrimination slipped, code words about outside agitators, and undesirable elements threatening property values. Corporate HR would have fired her for less. My underground network grew. Her stories. Playgrounds removed for visual pollution, medical equipment fined for clashing with aesthetic standards, mailboxes measured with carpenter levels. HOA finances showed legal fees tripling while actual maintenance dropped. Penelope was funneling neighbor money into personal crusades. I documented everything. Timelines, footage, financial irregularities. Water tests proved my boat was cleaner than half the septic systems around the lake. Scientific ammo ready to shred her environmental lies. The nuclear document arrived via my attorney's paralegal. Comprehensive title search confirmed. I owned the entire lake. Every drop, every inch of bed, every fish. Unbroken chain from 1919. The HOA had operated illegally for decades. My gazebo? On my land. Their docks? Trespassing. The $912,000 in collected fees? Potential theft. I could evict everyone, bankrupt the association, crater property values overnight. But Uncle Harlan's voice echoed, good neighbors share. I wanted justice, not The final showdown hit at the packed emergency HOA meeting. 70 residents crammed into a room built for 40. Penelope opened with theatrical venom, waving photos that made my boat look like an invading warship. This motion bans the vessel immediately. Protect our quality of life. The room buzzed with manipulated fear. I stood calm as a Navy briefing and connected my laptop. The 1919 deed filled the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't just have rights to this lake. I own it. Every platform, Penelope's own gazebo, built on my private property without permission. Gasps rippled like waves. Red-green. Forgeries, she shrieked, mask shattering. Deputy Ramirez watched as her empire crumbled. My attorney distributed survey maps proving decades of trespass. I offered generous terms, $50 annual licensing per household, keep your structures, remove all harassment. Penelope's reign ended that night. Within weeks she and her loyalists fled, for sale signs popping like mushrooms. Property values rose 15% without her measuring tape. New leadership slashed dues 40%, turned rules from weapons into suggestions. Neighbors brought pies and bourbon. The boat herself, laughing with friends instead of legal papers. I started a conservation scholarship with settlement money. $5,000 yearly for kids fighting HOA overreach or protecting watersheds. The case inspired statewide reform bills. Penelope resurfaced in an Arizona-gated community, now fighting $1,000 fines for unauthorized wind chimes. Karma, baby, sweet dripping irony. In the end, the real lesson here is brutally simple. Never underestimate the quiet guy holding century-old deeds. HOA Karens thrive on fear and clipboards, but one patient counterstrike can flip the entire lake and remind us that true community isn't enforced by tyrants. It's earned through respect. Fight smart, stay free.